She had 8 minutes. 8 minutes to make it to the exam that would decide everything. 3 years of sleepless nights, 2 part-time jobs, her mother's aching hands scrubbing floors. All of it came down to the next 8 minutes. Janae clutched her textbooks against her chest and ran through the rain. Her phone buzzed again. Final exam reminder. Pharmacology. No makeups. No exceptions. Then she heard it. A child's cry, sharp and desperate, cutting through the downpour. She stopped, turned, saw him sitting on the curb. A small boy in a soaked uniform, blood mixing with rainwater on his knee, completely alone. Her watch read 2:52 p.m. The exam started at 3 o'clock. She didn't know the boy. She didn't know his father owned the university she was about to lose everything at. And she definitely didn't know that her next choice would rewrite her entire life. The alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m. Janae's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, silencing it before it could wake her mother. The apartment was already cold. The radiator hissed and sputtered, doing its best, but the chill always won. She lay there for a moment, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. It had grown since last month. Another thing the landlord wouldn't fix. From the other room, she heard movement. Her mother was already up. Janae pushed herself out of bed and padded to the bathroom. The door was ajar. Inside, Lorraine stood in front of the mirror, buttoning her uniform, the navy blue dress with white collar, perfectly ironed as always. It hung on the back of the door like a flag of survival. "Morning, baby," Lorraine said without turning around. She was pinning her hair back, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. "You didn't have to get up yet, Mama." "Neither did you." Lorraine smiled at her in the mirror. "But here we are." Janae leaned against the doorframe and watched her mother pack the canvas bag, cleaning supplies, rubber gloves, the industrial strength stuff that made her hands crack and bleed in winter. Lorraine had worked as a maid at Grandmont Preparatory Academy for 23 years. 23 years of scrubbing other people's toilets so her daughter could sit in a classroom. "You got that big exam today?" Lorraine said, zipping the bag. "Pharmacology, right?" "Yeah. You're gonna ace it. I can feel it." Janae forced a smile. She didn't feel it. She felt the weight of everything riding on today. One exam, one shot. Fail, and the scholarship evaporated. Fail, and her mother's sacrifices meant nothing. "The Grandmont kids have been acting up this week," Lorraine continued, shaking her head. "Yesterday, the headmaster's son threw a fit, ran right off campus. They found him eventually, but Lord, those people don't know how lucky they are." Janae nodded absently. Rich people have problems. She had her own problems. Lorraine kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you, no matter what." "I know, Mama."
Bye.
The door closed. Janae stood alone in the quiet apartment, listening to her mother's footsteps fade down the hallway. By 1:45 p.m., Janae was on campus. Grandmont University sprawled across manicured lawns and Gothic buildings that looked like they belonged in a movie. She didn't belong in a movie. She belonged on the bus, clutching a travel mug of instant coffee, reviewing flashcards with hands that smelled like the library books she'd been shelving since 6 a.m. She sat in the back of the lecture hall during her last class before the exam. Around her, students chatted easily. A girl 2 rows up complained about her BMW needing an oil change. Another laughed about a ski trip to Aspen. Janae stirred her coffee and said nothing. Her phone buzzed, a text from the landlord. Rent reminder. Then another buzz. Electric bill overdue. She silenced it and shoved the phone into her bag. Focus. Just get through today. Through the window, she noticed a sleek black town car idling outside the science building. Tinted windows. A university parking permit on the windshield. She wondered absently who was important enough to have a private driver. Not her world. Never would be. At 2:30 p.m., she sat in the campus cafe surrounded by her notes. Pharmacology was brutal. Drug interactions, dosages, contraindications. One mistake in the real world could kill someone. One mistake on this exam could kill her future. She thought about her mother's hands, the way they trembled sometimes after long shifts. The arthritis is creeping into her knuckles. Lorraine never complained, but Janae saw it. She saw everything her mother gave up. This wasn't just a test. This was validation. Proof that the sacrifices weren't in vain. Proof that a girl from a cramped apartment could become someone who saved lives instead of cleaning up after them. Her professor's words echoed in her head. No makeups, no exceptions. Miss the exam, you get an automatic F. Fail this course, you lose your scholarship. She checked her watch. 2:35 p.m. 25 minutes until the exam. She gathered her notes, shoved them into her bag, and headed for the door. The sky had turned dark. Storm clouds rolled in fast, the kind that didn't give warnings. By the time she reached the bus stop, the first drops were falling. The bus was late. 2:42 p.m. She paced, checked the app, delayed 15 minutes due to mechanical issues. Her heart hammered. The exam hall was a 10-minute walk from here. If she ran, she could still make it. She started running. The rain came down harder, cold and punishing. Her sneakers slapped against wet pavement. Her bag bounced against her hip. Her textbooks grew heavier with every step. She passed closed shops, empty streets. Everyone had taken shelter. Everyone except her. 2:50 p.m. She could see the campus gates ahead. 2 blocks. She was going to make it. Her lungs burned. Her clothes were soaked through. But she was close. So close. And then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the rain. A child crying. Janae's feet slowed before her brain caught up. She told herself to keep running, told herself she was hearing things. The rain played tricks. The wind carried sounds from blocks away. But then she heard it again. Softer this time. A whimper, broken and small. She stopped, turned, and saw him. A little boy sat on the curb outside a closed hardware store, hunched over, shoulders shaking. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old. His uniform was soaked, a navy blazer with a gold crest on the pocket, the kind that cost more than her monthly rent. His knee was bleeding, red mixing with rainwater, dripping onto the sidewalk. No parents, no teacher, no phone in his small hands, just a child, alone, crying in the rain. Janae looked at her watch. 2:51 p.m. 9 minutes. She looked back at the boy. He lifted his head. His face was pale, lips starting to turn blue. Tears streaked down his cheeks, mixing with rain. He looked at her with eyes that begged for help. "Please," he whispered. Janae's stomach dropped. She took one step toward him, then another. Her nursing training kicked in before she could stop it. She knelt down, ignoring the cold water soaking through her jeans. "Hey," she said gently. "Hey, it's okay. What's your name?" Ethan." His voice shook. His whole body shook. "Okay, Ethan. I'm Janae. Where's your mom? Your dad?" "I don't know." Fresh tears spilled over. "I ran away from school and I got lost and it hurts." His hand clutched his knee. The cut was deep, still bleeding. Not life-threatening, but it needed cleaning, needed bandaging, and the way he was shivering, that was the bigger problem. "How long have you been out here?" she asked. "I don't know. A long time." Hypothermia. The word flashed in her mind. Small children lost body heat fast. His lips were blue. His skin was cold to the touch. She checked her watch again. 2:53 p.m. 7 minutes. She could call 911 and leave. Let them handle it. Response times in this neighborhood were slow, but they'd come eventually. But he was shaking so badly now, and he was looking at her like she was the only person in the world who could help. "Okay, buddy, I've got you." She pulled off her jacket, soaked but warmer than nothing, and wrapped it around his shoulders. "Can you stand?" He nodded and tried. His legs wobbled. She caught him, steadied him. "Good. You're doing great. We're going to get you somewhere dry, okay?" She looked around. The hardware store was closed. Everything was closed. Then she spotted it. A corner store half a block down with a faded awning, lights still on inside. She picked Ethan up. He was lighter than she expected. He buried his face in her shoulder and sobbed. 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes until her exam started. 10-minute walk to campus. The math was simple. Brutal, but simple. She carried him to the store. The clerk looked up when they stumbled through the door, dripping water all over the tile. "Can you call the police?" Janny asked, breathless. "He's lost. He needs help." The clerk's eyes widened. He nodded and grabbed the phone. Janny set Ethan down gently on a plastic chair near the register. She grabbed napkins from the counter, knelt in front of him. "This is going to sting a little, okay? But I need to clean it." She poured bottled water over the cut. Ethan winced, bit his lip. She worked quickly, carefully. Her hands were steady even though her heart was racing. The clerk hung up. "Police are on their way. Are you a nurse or something?" "Trying to be," Janny murmured. She found a first aid kit behind the counter, basic but enough. Antiseptic wipe, gauze, medical tape. She wrapped his knee with practiced precision, the way she'd learned in her clinical rotations. "You're really brave," she told Ethan. "A lot of kids would be screaming right now." He sniffled. "My dad's gonna be so mad." "Why'd you run away?" "He missed my science fair again." Ethan's voice cracked. "He always misses everything. He's always too busy." Janny's chest tightened. She knew that feeling. Not the same, but close enough. The loneliness of being forgotten, even when someone loved you. "Sometimes grown-ups mess up," she said softly. "But I bet he's really scared right now. I bet he wishes he could find you." Ethan looked up at her. "What's your name again?" "Janny." "You're really nice, Janny." Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with trembling hands. 2:58 p.m. 2 minutes until the exam started. She looked at the screen. A text from a classmate. "Where are you?" "The professor's about to close the doors." Her eyes burned. She blinked hard. "Thank you for stopping," Ethan whispered. Janny put her phone away. She smiled at him, even though her heart was breaking. "You're welcome, buddy." Sirens wailed in the distance. Janny kept her hand on Ethan's shoulder, feeling him flinch at every sound. The rain hammered against the store's awning. The clerk had turned on a small space heater behind the counter, and she'd moved Ethan closer to it. His shivering had slowed, but only slightly. "Does it still hurt?" she asked, checking the bandage on his knee. "A little." "That's normal. You were very brave in letting me clean it." Ethan looked down at his hands. They were small and pale, fingers wrinkled from the rain. "I shouldn't have run away." "Hey." Janny tilted his chin up gently. "We all make mistakes. The important thing is, you're safe now." "But my dad—" "Your dad loves you. I promise." She didn't know that. Didn't know anything about his father except that he'd somehow failed to notice his son was missing. But the kid needed reassurance, not judgment. Her phone buzzed again. 3:02 p.m. The exam had started. She felt something crack inside her chest. 3 years, gone. Her mother's sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the 2 jobs, the hunger, the exhaustion, all of it, evaporating because she'd stopped for a stranger. She silenced her phone and shoved it deep into her pocket. "Do you like school?" she asked Ethan, forcing brightness into her voice. He shrugged. "Sometimes. I like science." "Yeah? What's your favorite part?" Experiments. Like making things react. My teacher says I'm good at it. I bet you are. You seem really smart. A tiny smile appeared on his face. The first one since she'd found him. What about you? He asked. Do you go to school? I do. I'm studying to be a nurse. Like the ones at the doctor's office? Kind of. I want to work in a hospital, help people when they're really sick or hurt. Like you helped me? Her throat tightened. Yeah, like that. Ethan studied her face. Are you sad? Kids saw everything. A little, she admitted. I was supposed to be somewhere important today, but it's okay. This was more important. Because I was hurt? Because you needed help. And when someone needs help, you stop, even if it's hard. The words felt hollow in her mouth. Noble. Stupid. She wasn't sure which. The sirens grew louder, closer. A police cruiser pulled up outside, lights flashing blue and red through the rain. An officer stepped out, rain sliding off his hat, and pushed through the door. His eyes went immediately to Ethan, then to Janny. She saw the calculation happen. Black woman, white child, alone together. The officer's hand moved subtly toward his belt. I found him outside, Janay said quickly, carefully. He was hurt and lost. I've been trying to help. She pulled out her student ID, held it up with steady hands even though her pulse hammered in her ears. I'm a nursing student. I gave him first aid. The officer's posture relaxed slightly. He looked at the bandage on Ethan's knee, then at the first aid supplies on the counter. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened? She explained. Calmly. Clearly. Every detail. The officer took notes. And you are? He asked Ethan. Ethan Grandmont. The officer's eyebrows shot up. He pulled out his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. We've located the missing child. Ethan Grandmont. He's safe. Alert the family immediately. Janay's brain caught on the name. Grandmont. Like Grandmont Preparatory Academy, where her mother worked. Like the gold crest on his blazer. Rich family, very rich family. The officer knelt in front of Ethan. Your dad's been looking everywhere for you, son. He's going to be very relieved. Ethan's eyes filled with tears again. Is he mad? I think he's just scared. He'll be here soon. The officer stood and turned to Janny. You did good work here, thank you. She nodded, not trusting her voice. You can go if you need to, the officer added. We'll take it from here. She looked at Ethan. He was staring at her with wide, frightened eyes. Can she stay? He asked the officer. Please? The officer glanced at Janay. She checked her watch. 3:11 p.m. The exam was almost a quarter finished. But what did it matter now? She'd already failed. I'll stay, she said. Ethan reached for her hand. She took it. 10 minutes later, another car pulled up. Through the store window, Janay saw it. The same sleek black town car she'd noticed on campus earlier. The one with tinted windows and a university parking permit. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped out. Even from inside, Janay could see the fear on his face. The panic. He looked around frantically, then the officer waved him toward the store. The man burst through the door. Ethan! His voice cracked. He crossed the store in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of his son, pulling him into a crushing hug. I'm sorry, Ethan sobbed into his father's shoulder. I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't mean... Shh, it's okay. You're okay. That's all that matters. The man's hands shook as he held his son. His eyes were red. This wasn't performative. This was real terror, real relief. After a long moment, Ethan pulled back and pointed at Janny. Dad, she saved me. She stopped when everyone else just drove past. She missed something really important because of me. The man looked up. His eyes met Janay's. He stood slowly, still keeping one hand on Ethan's shoulder, as if afraid to let go. I don't know how to thank you, he said. His voice was rough with emotion. Janae shook her head. He's okay. That's what matters. What's your name? Janae. Janae Williams. He extended his hand. She shook it. His grip was firm, warm, human. Richard Grandmont. The name hung in the air. Grandmont. Janae's mind raced. You're Ethan's father. Richard's jaw tightened. And apparently a failure of one. Thank God you were there when I wasn't. He meant it. There was no pride in his voice, only shame. He said you missed something important? Richard asked. Janae's throat closed. She couldn't speak. A test, Ethan said quietly. For school. She was running a test. Richard's face went pale. When? It started at 3, Janae whispered. It's too late now. What kind of test? Final exam? Pharmacology? No makeups. The words came out flat, dead. I needed it to keep my scholarship. The silence that followed was suffocating. Richard stared at her, really looked at her, the soaked clothes, the worn sneakers, the exhaustion in her eyes. You gave up your scholarship to save my son? I gave up a test, Janae said. He needed help. But your scholarship was mine to lose. Her voice wavered. He's just a kid. He was scared and hurt and alone. What was I supposed to do? Richard's eyes shone. He looked at his son, then back at her. You did what I should have done. You were there. Richard pulled out his wallet. Please, he said, hands shaking slightly as he opened it. Let me give you something. Anything. I'll cover whatever costs you've... No, Janae stepped back. I don't want money. But your scholarship isn't your responsibility. Her voice was firmer than she felt. I made a choice. That's on me. Richard looked stricken. He glanced down at Ethan, who was watching them both with wide eyes, then back at Janae. You can't just... He stopped himself, took a breath. There has to be something I can do. Just take care of him. Janae looked at Ethan and managed a small smile. Make it to the next science fair. Ethan's face crumpled. I'm sorry I made you miss your test. Hey. Janae knelt down one more time, meeting his eyes. You didn't make me do anything. I chose to stop. And I'd choose it again. Okay? He nodded, but tears were sliding down his cheeks. She stood, suddenly desperate to leave before she fell apart in front of them. Richard reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. The cardstock was thick, expensive. Embossed lettering caught the fluorescent light. Please, he said, pressing it into her hand. At least take this. If you ever need anything at all, call me. Janae looked down at the card but didn't read it. Her vision was blurring. She just wanted to go home, crawl into bed, and let herself break in private. Thank you, she whispered, more to be polite than anything else. She tucked the card into her jacket pocket without looking at it. Richard's driver appeared in the doorway holding an umbrella. He looked like someone from a movie, black suit, earpiece, the kind of professional presence that screamed money and power. Sir, the driver said quietly, the car's ready. Richard nodded. He put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. Come on, son. Let's get you home. Ethan turned back to Janae. Will I see you again? Her heart squeezed. Maybe. I hope so. Richard extended his hand one more time. Janae shook it. I won't forget this, he said. I promise you, I won't forget. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They left. The driver held the umbrella over them as they walked to the town car. Ethan looked back through the window as the car pulled away, and Janny raised her hand in a small wave. Then they were gone. The officer approached her. "Do you need a ride somewhere?" "No, thank you. I'm okay." That was a lie. She walked home in the rain. The storm had softened to a drizzle, but she barely noticed. Her phone kept buzzing. Text after text. "Where are you?" Professor closed the doors. "Did something happen? Are you okay?" She didn't respond. What was there to say? The walk took 40 minutes. By the time she reached her apartment building, the rain had stopped completely. The sky was clearing. A cruel joke. She climbed the stairs slowly. Her legs felt like lead. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. The apartment was empty. Her mother wouldn't be home for another 3 hours. Janai dropped her bag on the floor, walked to her room, peeled off her wet clothes and changed into dry ones, moving on autopilot. She sat on her bed and stared at the wall. 3 years. Gone. Her phone buzzed one more time. She picked it up and read the notification. An email. From her professor. Subject: missed exam. Urgent. She opened it with trembling hands. "Ms. Williams, you missed today's final exam without prior notification. Per university policy, this results in an automatic F for the course. An F in pharmacology triggers immediate scholarship termination. The financial aid office will contact you Monday to begin the withdrawal process. No exceptions." Dr. Patricia Hernandez-Janay read it twice. Then she lay back on her bed, pulled her jacket over her face, and finally let herself cry. She didn't notice the business card slip out of her pocket and land on her nightstand. She didn't read the name printed on it. Not yet. Janny woke to her mother's voice. "Baby? Baby? What happened?" She opened her eyes. The room was darker. Late afternoon light filtered through the thin curtains. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed, still in her work uniform, eyes wide with concern. "Your clothes were soaking wet in the bathroom. You didn't answer my calls." Lorraine touched her daughter's forehead. "Are you sick?" Janay sat up slowly. Her head pounded. Her eyes felt swollen. "I missed the exam, Mama." Lorraine's face went very still. "What?" "I missed it. I was running to campus and I—" Her voice broke. "There was a little boy. He was hurt and lost, and I couldn't just—" "Oh, baby." Lorraine pulled her into a hug. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. All those years you worked and I just—" "Stop." Lorraine held her tighter. "You stop that right now. You did the right thing. The right thing cost us everything." "No." Lorraine pulled back, gripping Janay's shoulders. "No. Doing the right thing never costs everything. It might cost something, but not everything. My scholarship's gone. The email said—" "I know what the email probably said, but we'll figure it out. We always do." Janay shook her head. Tears came again, hot and bitter. "There's nothing to figure out. It's over." They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Lorraine stood. "I'm going to make us some tea, and then we're going to talk about this like adults, not like the world's ending." She left the room. Janay heard the kettle filling in the kitchen. She looked around her small bedroom. The nursing textbooks stacked on her desk. At the acceptance letter she'd framed on the wall. "Congratulations. You have been awarded the Grandmont University Merit Scholarship." Had been. Past tense. Her eyes fell on her nightstand. The business card lay there, face up. She picked it up absently, turned it over in her hands. The cardstock was thick, expensive, cream-colored with raised black lettering. For the first time, she actually read it. Richard E. Grandmont, President, Grandmont University. The card slipped from her fingers. She stared at it on the bed, heart suddenly hammering. Grandmont. University. The boy's father wasn't just wealthy, he was the president of her university, the university that had just terminated her scholarship. "Mama," she called out, voice shaking. Lorraine appeared in the doorway. "What's wrong?" Janny picked up the card with trembling hands and held it out. Lorraine took it, read it. Her eyes went wide. "That boy you helped," she whispered. "That was his son, Ethan. I didn't know." Jesus. They stared at each other. "What do I do?" Janny asked. Lorraine looked at the card again, then at her daughter. "I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know." But something flickered in her mother's eyes, something that looked almost like hope. "Maybe," Lorraine said slowly. "Maybe this isn't as over as we thought." The weekend passed like a funeral. Janay barely slept. She'd pick up the business card, stare at it, then put it down. Pick it up again. The cycle repeated 100 times. Should she call? Would it look desperate, opportunistic, like she'd helped his son just to get something in return? Her mother said to wait until Monday. See what financial aid said, then decide. But Monday morning came with another email. "Ms. Williams, please report to the financial aid office at 9:00 a.m. to discuss your scholarship termination and withdrawal procedures. You are required to vacate campus housing, if applicable, within 72 hours and return all university materials. Grandmont University Office of Financial Aid." Janay read it 3 times. She got dressed slowly. Black jeans, a simple sweater, the nicest clothes she owned. If this was the end, she'd face it with dignity. At 8:30 there was a knock at the door. Janny frowned. Her mother had already left for work. Nobody visited them. Ever. She looked through the peephole and nearly stopped breathing. Richard Grandmont stood in the hallway, dressed in a dark suit, holding a leather folder. Janay's hands shook as she unlocked the door. "Mr. Grandmont," she managed. What are you—" "I'm sorry to come unannounced," he said quietly. "May I come in?" She nodded, too shocked to do anything else. He stepped inside, looked around the small apartment, the worn couch, the cracked ceiling, the space heater in the corner. No judgment, just awareness. "How did you find me?" Janay asked. "Your student file. I know it's an invasion of privacy, but I needed to find you." "Why?" He set the folder on their small dining table. "Because Ethan hasn't stopped talking about you, and because I did some research this weekend." Janny's stomach twisted. "Mr. Grandmont, I didn't help him because I knew who he was, I swear." "I know." His voice was firm. Security footage from the store, the police report, the timeline. You were running toward campus when you stopped. You sacrificed your exam before you knew anything about us. He paused. "That's exactly why I'm here." Janay sat down slowly. Her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Richard remained standing. He opened the folder. "I spent the last 2 days reviewing your file. 3.9 GPA, 2 part-time jobs, 96% attendance despite working 25 hours a week. Your professors say you're one of the most dedicated students they've ever taught." "That doesn't change the policy," Janay said quietly. "I missed the exam. Policies have exceptions, for extraordinary circumstances. But let me finish, please." She went quiet. Richard sat down across from her. His hands were shaking slightly. "Friday night, Ethan told me everything. How scared he was. How you stayed even though you kept checking your watch. How you wrapped him in your jacket." His voice roughened. "He told me you were crying when you thought he wasn't looking." Janay's eyes burned. "I asked him why he ran away. He said it was because I missed his science fair. Again." Richard looked down at his hands. "I've been a terrible father. Too busy running this institution to see my own son." He pulled out a medical report. "This is from the EMTs. They said his core temperature was dropping. Early signs of shock." If he'd been outside another 30 minutes in that rain, he couldn't finish. Janae's hand covered her mouth. You didn't just help him. You saved him. You used your training to stabilize him, to keep him warm, to treat the wound properly. The EMTs said your first aid was textbook perfect. I just did what anyone— No. Richard's eyes locked on hers. Most people would have called 911 and kept going. You stayed. You missed your entire future to make sure a stranger's child was safe. Tears slipped down Janae's cheeks. You showed my son more compassion in 20 minutes than I've shown him in months. Richard's voice cracked. You reminded him that someone could care. He pulled out more documents. I'm not here to bend rules out of guilt. I'm here because you embody everything a nurse should be. Everything a person should be. He slid a document across the table. The university has a program I've been developing. A scholarship for students who demonstrate real-world compassion and crisis management. Students who don't just study helping people, they actually do it when it costs them everything. Janae stared at the paper. You're the first recipient of the Everyday Heroes Scholarship. Full tuition, stipend, book allowance, and after graduation, if you want it, a guaranteed position in our university hospital's emergency department. The room spun. But that's not all. Janae looked up. I learned your mother works at Grandmont Prep. Lorraine Williams. 23 years as custodial staff. Janae nodded, unable to speak. I'd like to offer her a position on our university facilities management team. Better pay, full benefits. She'd be close to campus, close to you. Janae's vision blurred completely. Why? The word burst out. Why are you doing this? Richard looked at her for a long moment. Because my son is alive because of you. Because you deserve it. And because watching you sacrifice everything for a stranger reminded me what really matters. He pulled out a drawing. Crayon on construction paper. A stick figure with dark skin and curly hair, wearing a cape and holding a stethoscope. At the bottom, thank you for saving me. Love, Ethan. That broke her. Janae sobbed, huge, gasping sobs. Relief, disbelief, gratitude. Richard waited quietly. Finally, she looked up. Say yes, Richard said simply. Say you'll accept. Janae thought of her mother's hands, the overdue bills, 3 years of exhaustion. She thought of Ethan's voice. You're really nice, Janae. She thought of the choice she'd made in the rain. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Richard smiled. Good. Then let's go to campus. You're not withdrawing. You're staying. This was real. This was actually happening. Richard's car pulled up to the university's administration building. Janae had never been inside. Students like her didn't have reasons to visit the president's office. She stayed in lecture halls and libraries. She kept her head down. Now she was walking through marble hallways with the university president himself. Staff members stared, whispered. Richard ignored them all. My office, he said to his assistant as they passed. Hold all calls. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the quad, dark wood desk, leather chairs, diplomas and awards covering one wall. Richard gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Janae sat, feeling small in the massive space. He moved behind his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thick folder. Then he sat across from her, not behind the desk. Equal footing. The Everyday Heroes Scholarship, he began, opening the folder. I've been developing this program for 18 months. The board approved it last quarter. We were planning to launch it next fall. But you said I'm the first. You are. Because after Friday, I called an emergency board meeting, told them we needed to launch immediately, that I'd found our prototype candidate. Janae's hands gripped the armrests. The scholarship covers full tuition and fees, room and board stipend of $1,500 a month, book allowance, technology stipend, everything you need to focus on your studies without working yourself to exhaustion. Her throat tightened. $1,500 a month. She currently made barely $800 working 2 jobs. You'll also be paired with a mentor, our chief medical officer, Dr. Sarah Carter. She's head of emergency medicine at the University Hospital. She'll guide you through your clinical rotations, help you prepare for your boards, and frankly, she's one of the best trauma doctors on the East Coast. I don't understand, Janae whispered. This is too much. It's not enough, Richard said firmly. But it's a start. He pulled out another document. There's a second component. You'll help select future recipients. Starting next year, we'll accept 5 students annually. You'll sit on the selection committee, review applications, interview candidates. You'll help us identify others like you, people who embody compassion in action, not just in theory. Me? But You're exactly who should be choosing. You understand what it means to sacrifice, to choose someone else's need over your own ambition. He paused. The board agreed unanimously. They want your perspective. Janae's mind reeled, sitting on a selection committee. Her, the girl who'd been scrubbing toilets 2 years ago to help her mother with rent. And your mother, Richard continued. I spoke with our facilities director this morning. We have an opening for a senior facilities coordinator. It's supervisory, managing the team that maintains 3 academic buildings, better hours than custodial work. Salary is $62,000 plus full benefits and retirement matching. Janae's eyes went wide. Her mother currently made $28,000 after 23 years. She'd be close to campus. You could meet for lunch. She'd have an office, not a supply closet. Richard's voice softened. She's earned this. 23 years of service. She deserves recognition. Does she know? Not yet. I wanted your permission first. This is your story, your choice. I won't move forward with anything unless you're comfortable. Janae looked out the window. Students crossed the quad below, laughing, carefree. She'd never been carefree, never had the luxury. What if I fail? She asked quietly. What if I can't live up to this? You already have. Richard leaned forward. Janae, do you know how many people were on that street Friday? The store clerk said at least 20 cars passed before you stopped. 20 people saw a child in the rain and kept driving. They probably had their own emergencies. Maybe. Or maybe they just didn't want to be inconvenienced, but you stopped. Even though it cost you everything, that's not something that can be taught. That's character. Tears blurred her vision again. This isn't charity, Richard said. This is investment. We're investing in the kind of nurse, the kind of person who'll stop when everyone else drives past, who'll stay late for a patient who has no insurance, who'll hold someone's hand in the emergency room when they're scared and alone. He stood and walked to the window. Ethan asked me something yesterday. He said, Dad, if Janae had to give up her dream to save me, can we give her a new dream? Richard's voice caught. Out of the mouths of children. Janae covered her face with her hands. He wants to see you, Richard said. He's been asking every single day. He made you something. Well, several somethings. Drawings. A card. He wants to show you his science project. The one I missed. He wants to see me? You're his hero, literally. He told his therapist that you proved people can be good. That was a direct quote. The weight of it hit her. She hadn't just saved a boy's life. She'd changed how he saw the world. There's one more thing, Richard said. He pulled out a letter. Official university letterhead. Your pharmacology professor, Dr. Hernandez. I spoke with her this morning. Janae's stomach dropped. She hates me. She doesn't. She's actually quite impressed. She said, and I'm quoting, any student who'd sacrifice their grade to save a life has already passed the only test that matters. He handed her the letter. She's offering you a makeup exam. Friday at noon. If you pass, your original F is voided. Your GPA remains intact. Janae stared at the letter, not believing the words. You still have to take the test, Richard said with a small smile. We're not giving you a free pass, but you'll get your chance. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me for becoming the nurse I know you're capable of being. Thank you for helping us find more students like you. Thank me by proving that good people don't finish last. They finish stronger. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Janae stood on trembling legs. She took his hand. Yes, we have a deal. Richard's smile widened. Welcome to the Everyday Heroes program, Janae. Something tells me you're going to change a lot of lives. She thought. You already changed mine. 6 months later, everything looked different. Janae stood in front of a classroom of 40 prospective students, the Everyday Heroes Scholarship Information Session, her first time presenting. Her hands shook slightly as she held the microphone. My name is Janae Williams. I'm the first recipient of the Everyday Heroes Scholarship, and I want to tell you why I almost wasn't here today. She told them the story. The rain, the exam, the choice, the fear. I thought I'd lost everything, she said. Turns out I'd just found it. After the session, students swarmed her with questions. 5 would be selected for the next cohort. The applications had flooded in, over 300 students, all with stories of compassion in action. A young man who'd organized a food pantry in his neighborhood. A woman who'd mentored at-risk youth while working full-time. A student who'd started a free tutoring program for immigrant families. Janae would help choose all of them. The story had made local news in April. University president's son saved by scholarship student, new program launches in response. The segment was only 3 minutes, but it went viral in the community. 10,000 shares. Comments flooded in. This is what education should be about. Invest in character, not just test scores. Where can I donate to this program? The university's donation line lit up. Within 2 weeks, the Everyday Heroes Scholarship Fund had received over $200,000 in donations, enough to fund 10 students instead of 5. Richard called Janae personally. We're expanding. The board wants to double the cohort. Would you be willing to interview more candidates? She said yes. Her mother's transformation was quieter but just as profound. Lorraine Williams now had an office on the 3rd floor of the Humanities Building. Her name on the door, a desk, a computer, a team of 15 people she supervised. The first day, she stood in the doorway and cried. 23 years, she whispered to Janae. I've been invisible for 23 years. Not anymore, Mama. They met for lunch twice a week now, sometimes in the cafeteria, sometimes on a bench overlooking the quad. Lorraine would talk about her team, about the projects they were working on, about finally feeling valued. They listen to me, she said once, wonder in her voice. They actually listen. Janae watched her mother bloom, saw her shoulders straighten, saw confidence replace exhaustion. This was what dignity looked like. Ethan had changed too. Janae visited him once a month, always on a Saturday. They'd work on science projects together, or she'd help him with homework, or they'd just talk. His anxiety had improved significantly. His therapist credited multiple factors, but she'd told Richard that Janae's intervention had been a turning point. You showed him the world could be safe, she'd explained. That strangers could be kind. That's huge for a child with anxiety. Ethan's drawings covered Janae's dorm room wall now. Dozens of them. Superheroes, nurses, scientists. Each one signed with a heart and his name. Last month, he'd won first place at the regional science fair. Richard had been there, front row, cheering loudly. Afterward, Ethan had run to hug Janae first, then his father. I couldn't have done it without both of you, he'd said. Richard had mouthed thank you over his son's head, eyes shining. The campus culture was shifting. Other departments started nominating students for character awards. Professors began weaving compassion discussions into their curricula. The university newspaper ran a series on academic excellence beyond the classroom. Faculty meetings now included conversations about holistic student development, not just grades, not just test scores, character, impact, real-world application of knowledge. Dr. Hernandez, Janae's pharmacology professor, had become an advocate. We can teach drug interactions, she told the faculty senate. We can't teach what Janae Williams demonstrated in that reign. We can only recognize it, honor it, and create space for it to flourish. The pharmacy program now included a community service requirement. Students had to complete 50 hours of compassionate care documentation, not just volunteering, but reflection on what they'd learned about humanity in the process. Janny had helped design the program. In November, the second cohort was selected. 5 students from diverse backgrounds, each with a story of choosing compassion over convenience. A young man who taught swimming to disabled children. A woman who started a mental health support group after her brother's suicide. A student who learned ASL for his deaf neighbor. Another who organized supply drives for homeless encampments. One who created a bike repair program for low-income workers. Janay met each of them personally, welcomed them to the program, told them her story. "You're not here because you're perfect," she said at their orientation. "You're here because when it mattered, you chose someone else. Remember that when things get hard." They looked at her with admiration. But Janay knew the truth. She was just someone who'd stopped in the rain. The world needed more people who'd stop. 2 years later, Janay walked across the graduation stage in a navy blue cap and gown. Summa cum laude, highest honors, top 5% of her class. The auditorium erupted in applause. Her mother sat in the front row, sobbing openly, hands pressed to her mouth. Next to Lorraine sat Richard and Ethan, both on their feet, clapping hard. Ethan, now 10 years old, held a sign he'd made himself. Big block letters in marker, "We're proud of you, Janay." She caught his eye and mouthed, "Thank you." He grinned, that same shy smile from 2 years ago, but brighter now, more confident. After the ceremony, they found her in the crowd. Ethan ran up first, nearly tackling her with a hug. "You did it! You actually did it!" "We did it," she corrected, ruffling his hair. "I wouldn't be here without you, remember?" He pulled back and handed her an envelope. Inside was a card with another drawing. 2 figures holding hands, one tall, one small. Behind them, a rainbow stretched across the sky. Inside, in his careful handwriting, "You taught me that brave people help others. Now you get to help people every day. I'm so glad you stopped in the rain. Love, Ethan." Janny's eyes filled with tears. "I'm glad I stopped too," she whispered. Richard stepped forward. "Congratulations, Janny. We're incredibly proud of you." "Thank you. For everything. You earned every bit of it." "The hospital's excited to have you. Dr. Carter says you're the best student she's mentored in years." "She's biased," Janay laughed. "She's honest. You start in 3 weeks?" 3 weeks. Emergency department, night shift." "Perfect fit," Lorraine said, pulling her daughter close. "My baby, saving lives." 1 year after graduation, Janay was working a late shift in the emergency department. A young Latina woman rushed in, frantic, carrying a little girl with a broken arm. No insurance card, no paperwork, just fear. "Please," the mother begged. "Please help her." Janay didn't hesitate. She took the girl gently, spoke in soft tones, got her stabilized and comfortable. Then she stayed 2 hours past her shift, helping the family navigate financial assistance, making sure they had follow-up appointments, ensuring they wouldn't leave with crushing debt. The nurse supervisor found her at midnight. "Janae, your shift ended 2 hours ago. You didn't have to do this." Janie looked up, thought of a rainy afternoon and a scared little boy. "Yes," she said quietly. "I did." As the family left, the mother pressed a crumpled thank-you note into her hand. Janie thought of Richard's business card, of how one small gesture could change everything. She walked back to the ER, ready for the next patient. Kindness wasn't convenient. It was necessary, and it always found its way back. Janie's story reminds us that one moment of compassion can rewrite 2 lives, maybe more. She had 8 minutes to save her future. She chose to save a stranger instead. And somehow, miraculously, both futures were saved. The world gives us 1,000 reasons to keep walking, to stay focused on our own goals, to protect our own dreams. But sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is stop. Stop for the person who needs help. Stop for the child in the rain. Stop for the stranger whose crisis isn't our responsibility, but becomes our choice. Janae didn't know who Ethan was. She just knew he needed her. That's the lesson. That's the legacy. What act of kindness changed your life? Have you ever stopped when you didn't have to? Tell us in the comments below. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to believe in goodness today. Subscribe for more stories that remind us why compassion matters. Because the world's watching for reasons to be cynical. Be the reason they believe again.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.